This is the House of Hockey podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey is more than a game, it's a lifestyle. It's you, the diehard supportive fans, your favorite players who are on the team you cheer for, and the organization who supports them.
The companies that make your gear, bags, and beer league sweaters. The hockey moms and hockey dads, and everything else that makes this House of Hockey your home. Come on in. I'm Breezy.
And I'm Rae Rae.
And this is our house.
DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook. Speaking of America, our top athletes are over in Tokyo competing for the gold, and DraftKings has a medal-worthy offer just for our listeners. Listen to this great offer. Place any pre-event wager of $1 to be eligible to cash $100 in free credits if America wins any medal this year. That's 100-1 odds on an American athlete to stand on the podium and receive gold, silver, or bronze this week. 100-1 odds on an offer like this doesn't come around often. So sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook now to get in on all of the action. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know Breezy does too. It is super easy to navigate. It has plenty of instructions for all of you new bettors and nearly limitless ways to get in on all of the action. Even my friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN. That's THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits if America wins a medal, and I know they will. That's code THPN to turn $1 into $100 in free credits for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. And I also don't know for a fact that we will win a medal, but I have a hunch that we probably will. So for legal reasons, I have to say that.
Welcome to the House of Hockey podcast. This is episode 73. I am one of your hosts, Breezy.
And I'm your other host, Rae Rae, and we have a guest this week.
We do. You may or may not know him. I'm assuming you probably will know him. He's kind of a big deal.
Kyle Bukauskas of Sportsnet. He is a rinkside reporter for them, as well as he covers Hockey Night in Canada. So all of our Canadian friends, you know him and see him, and he's covered a lot of Stanley Cup Finals for Sportsnet and covers a lot of different teams. And we asked him at like everything you would want to know from like a very expert, in-depth person who's like super tuned into the world of the NHL. We talked about the Montreal Canadiens, what they had that was great and what wasn't for them to get to the Stanley Cup final, the draft, the impending UFA. Like, what else did we talk about, Breezy?
Tampa, who he thinks, the best team moving forward as of the exact time that we recorded that was going to be going into next season. Some of his favorite moments, some top players that he thinks could be a good move or a bad move, whatever the case may be there.
Oh, and he's envious of somebody's thighs, and we'll leave that as a teaser so that you have to listen and figure out which player that is.
Yeah. So lots to talk about with Kyle coming up here shortly, but before that, there has been a lot of moving pieces in the NHL world. And I got a lot to say about certain things.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, first of all, Nick Foligno ditched his little brother and signed with Boston. All right. So we know that's out of the... Okay. That's fine. But you have two players that are leaving Boston who are going to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think the Leafs are like trying to build more of like a rugged edge to them. So Andre Kasha? Is that how you say it? Anyway, now I might have to figure that one out. And my arch nemesis, Nick Ritchie.
What are you gonna do? Are you gonna quit being a Leafs fan now?
No, I'm not gonna quit. I'm just not. I just, he's probably a player that they need. But just the thought of him like hanging out with Austin Matthews and their style going together, and then him like being probably going to be buds with Justin Bieber, I just don't want to see that trio hanging out. I just don't want to see it. But I am also super excited to see our boy Curtis Gabriel get his chance to play for the Leafs as well. So super excited for that too. But one other final thought, speaking of Boston still. Now, it wasn't like an official statement that was put out. It was just like speculations that Ryan Getzlaf could potentially have could play for Boston. He was available to, be signed anywhere he wanted to. He had a great opportunity to potentially go to Boston if they wanted him. There was just little rumors that I read here and there about that. But he signed again with the Ducks. I get he's being, what do they call that? Lost the word I was thinking
safe or
like dedicated to the team,
team guy.
A team guy. But I mean, he is a little older. They only signed him for one more year. Is this going to be his last year playing professional hockey?
Probably. Unless, I mean, why wouldn't he want to retire as a Duck? That's crazy.
That's true.
He's been there with them for how long? And, I don't see why not, unless maybe they couldn't get the money in Boston that he wanted. I mean, he could still play. He's still got it,
Yeah, he does. I don't know. And then this whole Corey Perry thing.
I love this Corey Perry trade.
He's just, I mean, yeah, it's great, but I just think it's funny how he's just skipping rocks trying to get to where he wants to go, which is cool.
Which is a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, which I think he enjoyed his time in Tampa a little bit too much playing for the Cup, that he was probably just like, yeah, well, I'll just sign here because they've got good potential. They could do a three-peat. Who knows?
Hey,
so
yeah,
why not?
That income tax is pretty nice down in Florida compared to Montreal.
Yeah, so there's been a lot going on.
I love that Corey Perry is going to Tampa. I can't wait to see him play there. I think it's hilarious. Like, I was like, yes, I love this move. Like, I want to see him with Patty Maroon. Like,
ex-teammates. They're for sure going to kick it off. I mean,
I know. Okay, who else? What else has got your goat?
I mean, nothing really else I think has got my goat. I was like, there's been so many moves going around, and I'm just sitting here like, what is even happening? I'm looking through the list right now.
You look and I'll go, because I've got a hot take. Why would Dougie Hamilton, the number one sought after UFA, sign a 7-year deal to play for the second to worst team in the league, the New Jersey Devils?
He wants to play with the brothers.
The Hughes brothers?
Maybe. That actually kind of sounds cool. The Hughes brothers.
No, that's not a reason to sign in New Jersey.
Honestly, I have no idea.
That makes no sense to me.
Well, maybe he's probably going to potentially be the face of the franchise. Maybe he just wanted to be more of, a front runner there, I guess.
No.
I don't know.
No, he went where he could get a long-term deal with more money. That's my opinion. Which is fine. Get your money, baby. But you're playing for the New Jersey Devils, who in the next 7 years will not be a playoff contending team, in my opinion. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Shots fired. You're shooting shots quite a lot lately, and you know what? I love it. I love it.
Because you know what? Why not? Oh, here's something I love, though. That one left me as a head scratcher. Wait, I have one more head scratcher.
Okay.
Blake Coleman.
Yeah. That's
Why
a head scratcher.
Are you going to Calgary for 6 years? Again, is this another case of you've got your cups, you want your long-term deal with a payout that you think you're going to deserve right here and now because you don't know what the future is going to hold? I get it. I mean, that was the biggest trend I saw, aside from the handful of the 1 year deals, that we always get, with Reeves. Reeves is going to be a New York Ranger. What? That's so crazy to me. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. This whole thing is just so like jumbled up. It's gonna take forever for me to like really like
Remember
keep up
who's
with
on what
this.
team?
Not to mention Jack Eichel came out with this huge statement, right, about everything going on. And I mean, New York, the Rangers are a front runner team for him to go to. I mean,
He's so
if
injury
anything,
prone. Who's going to want to pick up Eichel at this point? It's like, I mean, somebody
yeah, I mean
will, but still.
but I mean, Vegas is on the list. Vegas. Why is Vegas on everybody's freaking list? How are they? How can they always like be like a potential for someone to go to?
I
It
don't
makes
know.
no sense to me. And I'm like, he's probably going to want to go to Vegas, but then I guess you can go to Boston because that would be awesome too. But then why would you go to Calgary and why would you do this? And it's like, he's probably going to go to Vegas. I'm just going to say he's probably going to go to Vegas because Vegas can just.
Well, now they have the room. And
And
Tuck is going to be out for some surgery. I think I just
yeah,
read they don't have Marc-Andre Fleury. They're running into the salary cap issue with
yeah,
what happened with the way they approached their entry draft.
yeah.
Now this is becoming an issue. So Vegas fans, my heart goes out to you because I know how tough that is. I am still just so surprised that Reeves left Vegas. Like that just seems so shocking to me. But I'm guessing it had something to do with finances, not being able to pay him what he wanted or something like that. The team I'm so excited to watch, and people are going to be so mad that I'm going to say this because they're one of the hated teams in the league, the Philadelphia Flyers.
They're making moves.
They made all the moves. They got, listen to these names: Martin Jones, Cam Atkinson, Keith Yandel. Keith freaking Yandel and Kevin Hayes are going to be playing together, the chirping kings of the NHL. Mic them up at, ESPN or Turner Sports. Mic those two up. Mic them up. Nate Thompson, Rasmus Ristolainen, and Ryan Ellis. Like, are you serious? And Gritty. Oh my God. Like, what?
And Gritty.
What?
Although I have to say, Martin Jones, he's not the answer for them. I'm going to say that.
Okay.
Martin Jones was really hot with the Kings. He got obviously traded because he was training under Quickie. He got traded to the Sharks. He did really well for a couple years, and then he just went headfirst into a freaking garbage can. The dude couldn't even save a basketball if he wanted to.
Oh boy, that's a hot take.
Sorry, I mean, it was true.
No,
it was true. It was like Gibson at the friggin' All-Star game where he just literally let everything in for no reason.
Crazy.
Oh, man.
But either way, I'm super pumped to see how that all actually works together on the ice. I think they're really trying to make a run for playoffs. It would look like it because a lot of those contracts weren't long-term deals either. So
yeah.
I'm here for it. They had a pretty tough couple of seasons. So
yeah, and Seattle's made some pretty big moves.
What do you think of the Grubauer trade? Getting Grubauer.
I think it's
I thought it was
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you can pull that off, I would take it for sure. I think someone did like a mock line run for them. And just like their depth from line, 1 to 4, it looked pretty solid, and their defense looks pretty solid too. So, and obviously their goaltending is going to be great. So, I'm really excited to watch the Kraken play. I think I've made that pretty well known from the get go. Mm-hmm. But also the Kings signed Phil Deneau.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good move.
And Alex Edler. So. I think that both of those are going to be really good. I think Phil's going to do a lot of work with Kopi, and I think it's going to be really, really good. I know he wasn't a big goal scorer, but I think it also is going to come down to just your line mates. And although he had great line mates up in Montreal, but it was more of like everybody else was a better scorer than him. So I think he was good at passing to the better scorers. But if you have passers on the Kings, which we all know, Kings love to pass the puck. They don't like to shoot to save their lives. If they're feeding him, I mean, he could. What if he just turns out to be this massive, goal scorer?
Let's hope we see
Yeah.
that on the ice. Like, that's what I always want,
Yeah.
It's
So,
exciting to see, and we think they're going to be, incredible, but it's got to all come together in the locker room and with the coaching.
yeah, I think it's
Good.
going to be good. I think it was a good move though.
I do too. I do
So,
too. I don't think anything else was like super. Oh, I feel like I shouldn't talk bad about a former Chicago Blackhawks Stanley Cup champion, Brandon Saad, but he signed what, a 5-year deal with the Blues, and I was like, that's the perfect place for you. Like, that's the perfect place for him.
yeah.
I think. That's
Yeah.
that's all I have to say about that.
There's just so
I
many
don't think
players.
we were recording when I told you that, did I?
No, we weren't
Last week.
recording.
I
We weren't
said
recording.
the Kings do not need Brandon Saad. Do not take that deal.
She was like yelling at me. She's like, "That is a waste of your money." And I was like, "I mean, it's not in my pocket. You want me to call Rob Blake right now and just be like, hey, Rob, don't do this." Like,
I did. But that's what I have to say about that. What else? Is there anything else?
I just think that there's so many teams that are like so hungry. I mean, every team's obviously hungry for the cup, right? But I think that their eyes are just so big right now, and they're just like, give me everyone who's playing good right now, and I will sign them and pay them whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these players are getting a ridiculous amount of money, like way more than what they're worth.
And the long-term contracts, like these 7-year, 6, 7, 8-year deals. I mean, my theory with that is, I think they're hoping that in the coming years, the salary cap will go up.
Yes.
Because when's the next time they negotiate the deal with the NHLPA?
I'm not sure, to be honest. There was one person in particular that I was trying to see if they had signed yet, because it was just like, are you freaking serious? I don't think you signed. I'm going through the list right now.
Okay, the CBA that they agreed to was a 4-year extension in 2020. So these guys who are signing these 7-year deals and getting paid top dollar, I think the hope is that in 3 years, when they go back to the negotiating table, they'll be able to increase the salary cap, therefore be able to accommodate these guys on these longer contracts and be able to pay new players and younger players. That's my theory. That might be a little too logical and like too realistic seeming, but I can't understand it any other way. If the salary cap stays the way it is for the next 4 years,
right,
teams are screwed. You can't have guys like that. Like, it doesn't work, because it doesn't work.
No.
You need all the players, and I'm sure the league is only going to continue to change with the next draft classes and shift. So it's like, it's just changing so fast that I don't know. I don't know how the teams are going to make those contracts work.
I'm not sure either. Especially, I honestly have no idea, but they need to probably figure something out. But the person I was talking about, I still can't find it. Mike Hoffman wants over, like, upward of like $5 million a year.
Like,
I think
who even is Mike Hoffman?
Well, Mike Hoffman's kind of notorious for something with an ex-teammate. Their wives had some issues.
Okay, so for off ice, we know who he is, but do we know who he is on ice?
No, because he just, I mean, don't get me wrong, he did pretty well. He was with the Blues. He played pretty well with the Blues, right? I was sitting there and I'm like, what? And I saw someone they were like, if someone signs him for what he wants, I'm literally deleting Twitter. It's like, well, I mean, that's really going to show him, but.
He doesn't have a Stanley Cup with the Blues, though. No.
He signed after, I believe.
I don't know. I'm trying to look.
I don't know.
Either way.
I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, Okay. I'm going to go into my boss's office and I'm going to tell him that I want upward of $100 an hour and see what I can get. Because, I mean, I might as well just try because everyone else is just, grabbing straws at this point.
Exactly. Could you imagine, when you apply for jobs like
Yeah.
online, they say like, what's your minimum salary requirement? I'm always like, what am I supposed to put for this? Like, I don't
Right.
even, let's just put like $100 million and see
Right.
if you even like see that I wrote that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
stupid.
It is stupid because it's like, no, like, I mean, first of all, you're not supposed to put like what your desired pay is in the first place. So it's like, no one's really going to answer that truthfully. And if they do, you're kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like they just shouldn't even ask that question because it's like, I don't know.
I agree. I think Mike Hoffman's fishing in the wrong pond with that, but
Hey, he'll probably get it though. He'll probably get it. We'll just see who the sucker is. But did you see your boy Tom Wilson got engaged?
I did.
Did you see the meme that's going around? It's some dude goes like, "So did she know it was coming, or did you blindside her?" I was like, oh my god!
I laughed so hard when I saw that. That
Oh
was
man,
so good. I did
that
see
was
that.
so funny.
I did see that Tommy got engaged. And then a couple of my other hunks from that episode where we played The Bachelorette
Yeah.
got traded. One of the guys from the Red Wings and somebody else, I can't remember, but I was like, oh, I know who they. Oh, that
Yeah.
was one of my
They
fake
were on my
hunks.
show.
Yeah.
I dated them on the House of Hockey Bachelor style. I dated them for a quick moment
I did. We
until
went on
I
a.
booted them for playing mini golf. Not the way I wanted them to play.
Oh my God.
Oh
Oh,
man,
too funny. If you
too
don't know
good.
what we're talking about, you're gonna have to go back quite a few episodes, but you can listen. It was over the Christmas holiday, I think we did that.
Yeah, we had
Um,
our good friend Jordy host it for
mhm.
us. He's a host here
King.
on the King's Den podcast for the Hockey Podcast Network. So
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
you're not checking out Jordy, you should go check out Jordy because the guy's hilarious.
He is.
My name is Kyle Bukauskas. I'm a host and reporter for Rogers Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada. I grew up out on the west coast of Canada, but currently live in Ottawa, Ontario.
And let's get your initial reactions to the Seattle Kraken's team as of July 27th, the members that are on the roster. What do you think of their draft choices?
Well, they stuck true to what Ron Francis set out as his mandate from the jump, right? I mean, they had the green light from ownership to spend to the cap right away if he chose to do so, and there was some interesting decisions to make around the expansion draft, right? Carey Price among them, but he didn't go down that road, right? Like he took a lot of players that were either on short-term deals or certainly came in at a much lower AAV that he'll try to build his roster around or maybe use as trade chips down the line. And we already saw Curtis McDermott was already traded earlier today, and there was the great picture that they sent out there of his in his Kings garb with the Kraken logo superimposed on front saying, "Thanks for your time." So they've got a good a marketing group, a good social media group, clearly, and that was a big part of what drew a lot of people to Vegas when they first came in. Right, a lot of that stuff they knocked out of the park, and certainly Seattle has built a team to do much that beyond ice product, but. I think they're put themselves in a good spot. I like their defense. I like who they've got in goal. I mean, it was tough here in Ottawa for Senators fans seeing Joey Decord go. I mean, they all felt that he had some promise, and for him to be their, in theory, unless things change over the summer, their first call up as a netminder, I think you're already in pretty good shape there. And we'll see how they go about adjusting or go about addressing their forward group and how they get their offense going moving forward. But I mean, it's the pressure's on, right, because of what Vegas did a few years ago. But I liked how they went about picking the roster initially. I love their jerseys, and I can't wait to see that new arena in Seattle once it's all finished. And me being the West Coast guy, I mean, we went down to Seattle as kids growing up. We go to ball games, right, whenever the Blue Jays came in to play the Mariners, and so it's a beautiful city. They did a great job showing it off. the last few weeks here. And so, man, it's really, really neat that there's going to be an NHL team there very soon.
A
Yeah,
lot
it's
of
going to be
the.
super exciting.
Go ahead, Breezy.
I'll just say it's going to be super exciting. But is there a player that you might have thought that they should have maybe picked over somebody, or who do you think should potentially be brought into the team that could aid the players that are currently on the roster?
Well, it's a good question. I thought, it was a nice move by them to bring in somebody like Adam Larson to sign him to a contract. The fact that they brought in, Mark Giordano from Calgary. I mean, there's a leadership guy, a great person that's going to do some wonderful things in that city for as long as he's there. I know he's on the back nine of his career now, but certainly, though the Flames did struggle this season, it was not because of their captain, right? He still got, I think, a lot of life in his legs and his game still yet. So I really like that. I mean, as we, the clock gets closer to, I'm so used to saying July 1st, but July 28th now at noon Eastern, and the free agency window opens. It'll be interesting to see. As I say, like I like their defense. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and try to look for some options that maybe provide a little more scoring for them. Who those names end up being, I'm not too sure yet, Breezy, but I think they put themselves in a good spot again because they're not anywhere close to the ceiling of the salary cap. They've got a lot of flexibility, and the world we live in right now, cap space is king, and Ron Francis has an abundance of it here still.
Yeah. Before we get into some of the UFA talk, I know a lot of hockey fans from, just conversations online with a lot of the fans, and the general sort of consensus I was seeing in regards to Seattle was that fans were shocked that they didn't take big names like a Carey Price. Like when you have this stellar goaltender available, what kind of insight can you offer in regards to maybe some of that insight? I know you aren't Ron Francis, so you can't tell us exactly what he's thinking, but maybe you can provide some further insight into those choices.
I think, again, it was just giving them flexibility, right? I mean, Carey Price was one of them. You had Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson. Those are three players right there that, come with big AAVs, but also with quite a bit of term too. So if you go in and pick those players up, you're hitching your wagon to some players that you may have a tough time moving somewhere down the line when you want to decide to flip them again if you end up going that route. So, no question, certainly the Carey Price one was one that it was clear that Ron Francis gave a lot of thought, and it certainly brought a lot of intrigue leading up to Wednesday morning once all the names started to leak out about who they were selecting. But I think, again, he made it the mandate from the beginning that he was going to make sure he optimized the cap space and didn't put himself into a jam right from the jump. And though I'm sure was tempted at times to maybe take some of those bigger fish out there. Some of those aging players on, big bloated contracts with a lot of term left. I think he just felt, we're best to steer clear of that. And so good on him for sticking to his guns and, being patient and, just being able to say no, right? Like it's like that snack in the cover that you shouldn't have. And for myself, I know I have a tough time saying no to that. So good on him for saying no.
That's funny. And it's obvious that they've, stacked up their D lines quite a bit. So do you think that they may be taking the approach of maybe like a Blues or a Lightning team that have recently won the Cup with such strong defense?
Yeah, like it's such a copycat league, right? Like we've heard that for a long time. So I just think it's, that Tampa team this year, like, man, girls, it was like that was one of the
No.
the best teams I've seen in a long time. Like there was no weaknesses there. And I think we learned how good of a team, someone like the New York Islanders were. The fact that they took them within a shorthanded goal in Game 7 of actually beating them, because man, the Lightning were far head and shoulders above the rest of the league, and it was clear by the end of it. So I wouldn't be surprised in that, because you look at both of those teams. I mean, really, like those Pittsburgh teams, particularly in 17, when they had so many injuries on their blue line, and they still were able to win. I mean, they were the outlier, but really, over the course of the 2010s and now into the 2020s, like that seems to be the mandate. A big, heavy blue line, but now you're finding big, heavy defenseman that can also skate, right? Like I know, Victor Hedman is obviously the superstar and one of the best to do it at that level. But you're seeing more and more, like even just going through the draft this past weekend, like how many 6'4", 6'6" defensemen or power forwards were taken. Tyler Boucher here in Ottawa was a guy that was taken 10th overall that weren't on many players' lists, but the Senators were certainly high on him because he's got those Tom Wilson-like qualities that he can skate, he can stick handle, he can finish around the net. And so we've moved away from that era of just because you're big, you're going to get an opportunity. Now you're finding guys that are big and can also move. And so Tampa, certainly they had that mobile defense, whether it was Hedman or McDonough or Mikhail Sergachev. And then you've just got some really nice complementary guys along with that. And somebody like Jamie Oleksiak, who signed for a pretty penny, who at one time a couple of years ago was a healthy scratch at times in Dallas, and is now earning a contract that's paying him over $5 million per year. Part of that's on him and how he's improved his game over the last little while, but also just how that type of player is valued, and no question Seattle seeing that.
It's crazy how as the decades or the years come on, how you would go for the smaller guys who had the skill and the speed to now the bigger guys, and it just kind of blows your mind on how it kind of switches back and forth from that.
Right, and certainly the small guys with skill are no question still attractive, but again, let's go back to Tampa as an example. Like Braden Point is a smaller guy, he's got a lot of skill. He's not necessarily going to intimidate you, but I would absolutely put him in the category of guys that are tough to play against, because whether it's him or Andre Palat or Yanni Gord or Blake Goldman, go down the list from there, they are relentless, right? Like they do not give you a shift off when you're playing against them, and that really clearly comes through come playoff time over those 2 months there, and that's where the beauty of their games really shine. And so that's what teams ultimately covet. And now we're seeing more and more examples of teams going, I've got to find, those types of players in our organization. We've got to bring them in however you do it, draft, free agency, try to swing a trade for them. But, as Mark Bergevin likes to say, those types of players don't grow on trees. So they're hard to find. And when you do get them, you don't like to let them go.
Yeah. Speaking of being let go, we've got to talk unrestricted free agency. I know this is going to be coming out after, so a lot of news will have happened, but I would like to know from you, who are the top 3 most valuable UFAs that you think are available right now?
Oh,
I know that's a broad question, right?
Yeah,
Because we've got defense and and goaltenders and things like that, but who could really do some, who would you maybe like to see somewhere added into Ottawa, or something along those lines, if it's too broad of a question?
Yeah, no, I think certainly here in Ottawa, I mean, my understanding is their big priority right now is to find a defenseman. Now, whether that's a left shot or a right shot, my guess would be right side, but we'll see. I think that's their priority right now. I think they would also like to add a center that could fit somewhere in their top 6, or at least as an option there as the off season progresses. But as we sit here right now, it sounds like a defenseman is their number 1 priority. Around the league, I think as far as the guy who may get the biggest payday, I wonder about a guy like Dougie Hamilton, right, who went to Carolina and put up some wonderful numbers there on a very vastly improved Hurricanes team. And it doesn't sound like they're going to be able to make something to happen there. As we know, the owner there, Tom Dundon, has his the way he looks at life, right, and in terms of what people are worth, and he won't budge from that. And so, for him, I hope he does find somewhere where he can cash in and take advantage of the leverage that he's built up here over the last couple of seasons. Where that ultimately is, though, I have no idea. Now, as you say, when this comes out, maybe we will have the answer to that. But at this point, it's just it's too hard to tell. I mean, you look at a guy like Seth Jones, who gets $9.5 million in Chicago. Will he get to that number? I don't think so. But certainly in the category of 8, it wouldn't surprise me at all over a longer term, just because of what he's put up. And he goes drafted in Boston, doesn't quite work out there. traded to Calgary, has some moments, doesn't quite work out there, and then goes to a market where the scrutiny isn't as high. He's just able to play his game and isn't raked over the coals every time he's made a mistake, and there isn't the same spotlight on it. And what do you know? His game takes off, right? So hopefully he finds wherever he ends up landing is a spot that allows him to continue to do that. But yeah, in terms of who could be commanding the most money here once UFA hits, so that's a name that comes to mind for me.
And then we've the Avalanche have so many UFAs up available, and that team seems to be coming apart. What do you think that is going to look like for the Avs moving into the next season? Like, are they starting a potential, I hate the word rebuild, but like, are they starting that? Are they going to try to keep some of these guys? Like, what do you think's going on there?
Yeah, I don't think we're anywhere close to using the rebuild word, Ray, but we'll see. Like, it was a very good team that just ran into some tough times in that Vegas series, and they didn't have an answer for it. So another off season of a bit of soul searching for a team that's been on the rise, but again, it's stuck trying to get out of the second round mode still. So I would say, I mean, obviously the big one's Gabriel Landeskog, right, the captain, where it seemed like it was off the rails a week ago, but just in following guys like Elliot Friedman, maybe there's a solution to be had there and a contract still to be signed with the team that drafted him back in 2011. And then, of course, I think the other big one would be Philip Grubauer in net if they're able to make something work. They just signed Cale Makar to
Right.
$9 million, right? So that's a big chunk. But I will say, like, the one thing that we've learned about Joe Sakic as a general manager, like, he's patient, right? Like, I remember that Matt Duchene saga because it ended up him, being traded here to Ottawa. But, it was a while that it was known that Matt Duchene wanted out, and Joe Sakic made it clear that, okay, I will make the trade happen, but it's going to be on my terms, not yours, right? So he's not afraid to take his time to find the right type of deal when it comes to trades. And I think, we're seeing that it holds true for his in-house players and getting new contracts done. So even though things may not be happening as quickly as Avs fans would like, I'm not quite at the point yet where I'm a little worried about them. I think they've established a pretty good group there, a good culture, and then how Joe Sakic likes to go about his business. And they've still got Rantanen, they've still got McKinnon. As I say, they just locked up Cale Makar. I mean, a good role guy like Ryan Graves goes, but you still got a lot of good players there that should absolutely leave you believe. And if they can tidy up the rest of the business that's on the docket here over the course of the offseason, absolutely should be a team considered to be back in the playoffs next spring.
And then speaking of weird kind of trades going on, Fleury was just traded to the Blackhawks today, and there's that itself is a conversation to be had. But we want to ask you too, because this isn't the first trade that's gone down where the organization hasn't really communicated that with their player. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
It's tough. It's a tough look, right? Because
Yeah.
if you've got somebody like Marc-Andre Fleury who's beloved across the league, like forget just Vegas where he is a megastar. He's loved league-wide. This is the guy he just won you a Vezina trophy, and between him and Leonard, they won the Jennings this year. So
Like 30 days ago.
Right,
Crazy.
right. Like it just happened. Yeah, like they just finished tacking in his name onto the award. So like it's amazing to me how that, I know we live in a world now where information can get out so quickly and so easily. But I think there's got to be some mechanism in place where a player, certainly of Marc-Andre Fleury's caliber, is notified before it goes public, because it's a bad look optically on the outside. And I mean, I can only imagine being a player in that dressing room, seeing one of your now ex-teammates who you love dearly being treated that way on his way out. I mean, clearly it was a tough day for the organization to move on from somebody like that, but they see Robin Leonard as their number one guy going forward, and then that's why they made the trade. So I didn't like it when I heard that's how it came out. I mean, it's easy for me to say that. I just there has to be a way where within that organization that things can the lid can keep on news like that and until the player is notified, and then the rest of us find out after the fact, because I think he's built up too much of a resume of respect across the league and within that organization to have that happen. It was too bad.
I know. I don't think we're gonna hear. I don't think that's the end of the news with Fleury, from what I've
No,
been
with Alan
reading.
Walsh as his agent?
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
I'm sure there'll be more to come out. And
Exactly.
Alan Walsh is a very nice man.
Exactly. And that's the other aspect is like, people, sometimes fans forget that it's not, you know, necessarily the player, and that it can be things that the agent is doing or not doing on the behind the closed doors that we don't know about. So, well, I guess we can leave it at that.
Sure.
Since his agent is such a nice guy, we will just put a pin in that there. But I mean, I'm a Blackhawks fan. I'm originally from
Okay.
Chicago. So, everyone's like, that's awesome and I'm like, guys, we got to pump the tires. I don't know if this is going to be a permanent situation here,
Right, that's the other aspect too, right? Like we don't know if he's going to retire or not. And I think he put out a statement tonight that didn't address any of that at this time. So we'll wait and see. I mean,
Right.
if he does choose to play, you've got Seth Jones playing in front of you, and hopefully a captain in Jonathan Taves who's ready to return and play again. It looks like he's on that trajectory. So, yeah. I mean, we'll see. Maybe it won't be so bad if he ultimately chooses to report to Chicago. It might be kind of neat.
It's true. I mean, I'm sure. Chicago fans would embrace him with open arms. I know that. So,
I just feel like he has more gas in his tank. Like, I don't know if he's ready to throw in the towel yet.
I'm with you. Like, certainly just from watching his play, I would say that as well. I don't know him well enough personally to have a sense of where he's at in terms of how much longer he wants to play. But yeah, when it comes to what he's capable of on the ice, there's nothing to suggest he's running out of steam. I'm with you.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. Well, I know it's a little too probably soon to say anything with the fiasco that's going to be happening tomorrow. And again, this is being pre-recorded. But so far, I guess, with the current roster situation as of today, who do you think has the most potential going into next season? Or who do you think, could potentially have a good season coming up with some moves that they could be making over the next couple of weeks?
That's a dangerous question to be asking now, right? Like it's how do you know for sure until you start playing games, and that's why I mean it's fun to do the predictions at the start of the season, right. But like nobody really knows. I mean, so long
right,
as
like
I know
on paper.
Yeah. I mean, so long as Tampa is still carrying around the players that they have with John Cooper at the helm there, like I still got to consider them to be in the mix. I know they've already lost some guys and will likely lose maybe one or two more here over the off season, as they won't have the same LTIR benefits. At least it's not likely anyways that they had this year. So that'll be an adjustment for them, but in terms of who's left there, I wouldn't be surprised if they're back in the mix, and a goaltender that's capable of carrying them and is absolutely money when everything's on the line and a chance to close another team out. So that would be one there. And then from the West, let's see here. That's a good question. I mean, I'm not sure if there's anyone in the Pacific right now that's screaming at me as someone that's knocking on the door. Again, we talked about Colorado. I until they get through that second round, and it's kind of one of those wait and see type thing before you're all in on them. But the potential is absolutely there. I still I spent quite a bit of time around Boston a couple of years ago when they had a couple of lengthy playoff runs, and so long as that core is still there. I know Char's not there anymore, and neither is Torrey Krug, but I don't count them out. But I think Tampa for me, and maybe it's just the idea of what have he done for me lately, but right now, like there hasn't been anything yet that suggests that this team is right now head and shoulders above Tampa. And again, understanding that they've lost some guys over the last little bit, they're still a team for me that they finally got over that hump of winning it, and now they've got the feeling that they know how to do it again.
Yeah. We can't leave out Montreal Canadiens out of this conversation because I think they were such an underdog team, at least to the fans who are not Montreal Canadiens fans all season long, to see them end up in the final. And they played, I thought, and I've said this here, that I thought they played pretty well against Tampa, and that a lot of the if you're looking at the paper numbers, you would say no way. But if you were watching the games, you would say, well, no, they were fairly well matched. Tampa had some really good goals, and the Canadiens did not. What do you think they did really well, and will they be able to improve next season?
Well,
I
yeah.
say Montreal, and I know it's wrong, and I'm trying to remember to say Montreal. Everybody, I made this like video about it, and I was like, I don't say it right. People are like, Montreal. I can't understand what you're saying. Montreal. There we go.
No, that's all right. I don't take any offense.
I'm not Canadian. I can't help it. I mean, I'm from
No,
Chicago. It's close enough, but not really.
yeah, that's right. Just a short flight away.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about playoffs, then
Yeah.
what they did well is that they were a team that found the formula of how they needed to play, and everyone just bought into it, right? Like you see the value of having that type of, I guess, one, leadership in the room, and just having that give a bleep meter, that care that you need. That sometimes gets thrown around as a cliche, but I just thought that was a group that was 100% dialed in. Everybody knew what their role was, and they had a pretty darn good goalie back there that was bailing them out when they needed to. But even so, like for like a decade, the narrative has been in Montreal, like, well, they'll only go as far as Price takes them, and certainly that was true here again. But like, I don't think they got there because Price was brilliant. Like, I just thought that was one cog into what made up the machine that was Montreal, from being down 3-1 to Toronto and all the way to 3 wins shy of winning the whole darn thing. So I just, it helped when they went through that 7-game run where they didn't trail at any point. So Dom Ducharme could just roll his lines and didn't have to be forced to make any real tough decisions in game about making any type of real hard adjustments in terms of who he was getting out there against different people. He just was able to keep things rolling. But from top on down, like, there were a lot of nights that fourth line really got things going and set the tone for their group the first 10 minutes. And then as one of the top guys on the bench, you're sitting there watching what they're doing, going like, all right, guys, like, let's follow that up. And it's contagious, right? So all of that was, I think, what went into their run. And you can tell there was an incredible amount of belief within them that they could hang with them. They get slapped around a little bit in game one against Vegas, in Vegas, like their first time playing in a full building in over a year. And then what do? They responded the next game and took a split back to Montreal and ended up winning the series, right? Like they found a way to keep calm and not panic. So that's what I would say that they did really, really well. And we'll see how things look come the fall when they've got their lineup put together again, with Shea Weber's future in sincere doubt. It's a tough blow for their blue line, for their dressing room, for the organization. But if there's one silver lining out of it, I mean, you've got, assuming you're able to put his contract on LTIR once the season rolls around, a la what Tampa Bay did with Nikita Kucherov this year. Marc Bergevin has a lot more cap space at his disposal, so he made good use of it. Finally, last fall, with the amount of players that he brought in and signed to contracts with a bit of term to them, and he's got the opportunity to do some more of that here this summer. So whether it's through free agency or through trade or a little bit of both, there is some needs to address. I mean, they did get Yoel Armia signed earlier today, so that's one hole that's taken care of and bringing him back. It doesn't sound like Phil Deneau is coming back, so there's a real dependable two-way center guy that is now elsewhere, and that's not an easy spot to fill either. So there's a lot of work for Marc Bergevin to do here in Montreal, but it's just too bad. Like, watching how things unfolded with the draft this past weekend, and their selection of Logan Mailloux there at the end of the first round, and how just the feeling in that city and then just over around the team, right? Like we were just talking about how great their run was to the Stanley Cup final, and all of that completely went out the door in making that selection. And then not only that, like it just how poorly I felt that the organization handled the explanation of it in the aftermath, whether it was that night or again there the next day. So it's too bad that they've brought that upon themselves, and unfortunately it once again is just a reminder that this is a business of winning, and for the most part, regardless of what your off-ice issues may be, if you're a player that teams believe can that you can help win, they won't hesitate to bring you aboard. And we saw that again with their selection this past Friday. And so now that's something that's something incredibly serious that they've got to make sure is handled the right way. But I didn't like how it got how the start that it got off to in the aftermath of making that selection. So right now, unfortunately, that's kind of the narrative around this team after what was such a wonderful, fun, enjoyable run for them and everyone following it throughout the spring.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, players kind of have to come and go and can't always keep the same lineups. I mean, we're seeing that with Tampa, obviously, now, but hopefully they can still keep that fire under their butts and keep pushing forward. I mean, it was cool to see. I think that, but I think there's other teams out there that can definitely get the fire under their butts and make the moves that they need to do. And we'll see what happens over the course of the next few weeks and before the season starts, right?
Yeah, we'll see. And for Montreal, right, like I think the big thing is to prove that this was not a flash in the pan in their run to the final, right? Like it's been an issue the last few years about trying to lure free agents to come to that city for a bevy of reasons, right? The tax situation, playing in the market like Montreal, and how difficult it can be scrutiny-wise. If you can show that you're a perennial playoff team, then maybe you're having a bit of a better opportunity, better chance, better percentage of bringing in some higher profile names to help you win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just maybe not Kucherov, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think he'll be coming up anytime soon. So that'll be fun. The first time that Tampa goes into Montreal this season, hopefully with a full house on hand in Montreal. I can't wait to hear what the crowd has to say the first time he touches the puck that night. But it's good. I loved it. It was great entertainment.
I can't wait to see what the players do. That's what I'm interested in seeing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's all on the table, I think, that first meeting.
Yeah, I think some gloves need to be dropped at face-off, the opening face-off, and that's what I would do if I was a player.
That's what you do? Yeah, all right.
That's what I would do.
Like, I wouldn't. I think I'd be too scared to do that, but anyway.
Oh, no, I would. Fun. We saw it in the playoffs. That was so crazy. The opening, that was what, New York and...
Well, New York and Washington. Yeah, that was right at the end of the regular season.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was like a page out of the 70s.
Yeah, I was like, more of that, please. Anyway, tell us, who is your favorite person you've ever interviewed, hockey player wise, current or retired, or do you have like a favorite moment that you've gotten to witness in your career?
Well, I mean, being on the ice just a few weeks ago down in Tampa, like watching the Stanley Cup being handed out, I mean, that's one that you never forget. And I've been fortunate to be on the ice like after it's been presented a couple of times, and all of it's really special. It was unique this past year because normally after the cup's handed out, all the family gets to come out on the ice, but because of the restrictions, they weren't able to do that. So it was just the players and the team staff that were out there. I remember being in Boston when St. Louis won Game 7 there in 2019, and going out on the ice and interviewing the players, and they're with their mom and their dad or their wife or girlfriend or their siblings and stuff, and just talking about everything that goes into getting a moment like that, right? I mean, all the sacrifice that's made along the way. It's really, really cool to just see that on their faces in that moment, and that all the work that had been put in, was worth it. They're a Stanley Cup champion. So stuff like that, I certainly don't lose sight of, and I'm incredibly fortunate to get an up close personal view of it all. So those ones are right up near the top. And in terms of an interview, one that keeps sticking out in my mind, I did a sit down with Tyler Seguin a couple of years ago, and this was when I was living in Montreal. So Dallas had played, I think, in New Jersey the night before, flew into Montreal that night after the game, and then it was rather early the next morning. We had set up for this interview at their hotel in this conference room that they'd given us. So we got there a little bit early, and the crew was already there setting up the shot and everything. And it was like 8:30 we were supposed to speak to them, and they would have got in, I don't know, maybe 1 a.m. to the hotel. So a tight turnaround for Tyler to come down and now talk to us and to be thoughtful and all of that. So he comes walking in and looks like he had, maybe a couple hours of sleep, right? Because I would never, I couldn't imagine as a player going through a game, traveling, and then trying to wind down right away afterwards. So who knows how late he was up till the night before, just trying to get to sleep. So he comes in, he's got like his jacket on, even though we're indoors. He's got his toque on, even though we're indoors, and was low energy. And I don't blame him in the least. And he kind of sat down and like shoulders slumped. And I'm thinking like, oh boy, how the heck's this gonna go, right? Like this may be headed straight for the trash, and it never even sees the light of day. And so we're sitting there, everything's getting set up, cameras in focus. Okay, we're ready. And so I looked at him, I said, Tyler, you good to go? And he was kind of like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, like get me out of here. Anyway, and then we started the interview, and he was brilliant. Like he was so engaging. His answers were incredibly thoughtful with, tremendous insight, and you just got that degree of honesty. There was no cliches or anything of the site there. I really enjoyed it. It was probably about, 15 minutes. We sat there and talked, and I really liked what he had to say. It was an easy guy to listen to. And then the camera shut off, and he was ready to go, right? And so it was funny, just, the drop of a hat, and he was, it came alive, if you will. So that was one that I always, come back to just because I thought it was going one way, and we started and ended up being, a really nice conversation.
Professional at its finest, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. When the lights come on, as he, as he does,
perks up and he's ready to go.
He just performs.
I call it putting on my TV face. I can put my TV face on in 2.2 seconds. Like go from being like completely distracted to like, hello, yes, welcome to the House of Hockey podcast. I'm like he's got that ability. That's awesome. No, sure. There was something, and I was I have one more question, and then we'll wrap it up with our final three, unless Breezy has something else. But I was going to say, have you ever been to a Stanley Cup party? And two, if you have, can you even tell us about it?
Yeah, no, I never have. Like I never had like a buddy play in the league and win, or like a family member. One of my close friends growing up, his cousin is Colin Fraser, who won 3 Stanley Cups as like a role player. One with Chicago in 2010, and then 2 more with LA in 12 and 14. So I know he's been to 1 or 2 before. And so I remember like in high school feeling incredibly jealous because he got to go drink from the cup and do the whole 9 yards that way, which was really, really neat for him. So that's the closest I've got. It's just living vicariously through one of my close high school friends. So no, I've never been to one myself.
For now, not yet.
For now. But you probably have seen the cup more than he has in person.
Maybe I may have that over him. Yeah, but I've never touched it. Never touched it, just looked at it.
Well, maybe Seguin will hear this, and if he ever wins a cup, he'll be like, gotta get Kyle to come to the party. He's never been to one. We gotta get him there. Maybe that'll happen. Or somebody else.
I highly doubt it, but I know who to thank if that ever does happen.
There you go.
He'll be responsible for it.
Breezy, did you have any more? Should we get him with the final? Oh, it's 4 now. I forgot.
I don't know, 4. I don't know. We haven't done this in a while. I know. I kind of forgot him.
All right, I'll kick it off. Who's your ultimate hockey hunk? We ask everybody this: men, women, players, broadcasters. Yeah. So this is everybody has to give us something.
Okay, like of all time.
Sure, of all time, current, like the hunkiest guy.
Man, probably Sid.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give that to him.
There you go.
He's like I'm very like yeah. He's got massive legs, and I'm very envious of him. Like it's
He
unbelievable.
does. Well,
Yeah,
that's
like
one
good
of
for
our
him.
other questions. I'm going to
Okay.
skip the second one and go to three then. Do you have a Sidney Crosby story?
Um,
Like, as
let's
in
see
if you've
here.
met him or had any interaction with him?
Yeah, I have like just in being around long enough now. Like we've had different run-ins, and it just amazes me that just how kind and respectful and gracious he is to talk with like me, who like I mean I'm a nobody, right? Like there's much other people in this world that would be higher on the list in terms of those that someone like Sid would want to talk to, but he's been always incredibly good to me, whether it's interviews for our broadcast or just sitting down and talking with them for a couple of minutes in the dressing room. It's always been yeah, incredibly enjoyable. He doesn't give you much, right? Like he knows the PR game. He's not going to be one to say anything that can get him in any type of hot water or his team in hot water. So he knows that way. But yeah, I enjoy the conversation with him, and because he was a guy that I mean he came into the league when I was still fairly young. Like I remember as a kid, right? Like Sid and Ovi and that whole rivalry. I grew up in that era, right? And then battling in the playoffs and Sid winning in '09 and then now being able to cover both of them still in the league, like it's really really special for me. So yeah, I've had a chance to interview him, to talk to him a couple of times, and have always walked away just dumbfounded that he took the time to speak with me. So really really neat.
Well, I think one of your next questions for him has to be, what's your leg workout routine? Just
I know.
saying.
I don't even know. Yeah, I wonder if you didn't give that up, but yeah, it'd be great to like if somebody did like a behind the scenes feature on like a Sidney Crosby leg day. That would be
Sounds
next
like
level.
you've got your next pitch for your next
That's
meeting
right.
at work.
Yeah.
This
Yep.
is all happening,
Yep.
and you're gonna need to send us that video of you and Sid working out in the gym together.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd be working out. Like I mean, I'll wear shorts. Like that'll be the closest thing I'll get to like working out. But yeah, I doubt. Yeah, I wouldn't even be able to hold a candle to him in
That
any
makes
regard.
that's what makes great television.
I guess
Come
so, right?
on.
Yeah, right. That's like the argument that you make for someone will make for the Olympics every year, right? They should just have like an average
Yes.
Joe or Joanne compete in every event just to show the difference between the athletes and
There you
the
go.
rest of us. So
Yep.
yeah, I'd happily do it. I'd take the bullet for it.
Okay, I'll let Breezy ask the last one after this. So who's your favorite hockey lady?
Favorite hockey lady?
Hmm.
So what's the criteria? Like who all?
Anybody in hockey. It can be a player, it can be coaching
Oh
staff, it can
wow.
be broadcasters.
Wife, girlfriend,
Mhm.
Yeah,
anybody.
well, my girlfriend doesn't work in hockey, or I mean, she's a fan of it, but that's as close. So, I mean, she would be my pick. She's my favorite lady. But in terms of hockey lady, that's oh man, that's such a good question that I haven't even thought of like who my favorite is. I would say Cassie Campbell Pascal would be my favorite. I mean, I'm biased because like she's a teammate of mine. Like we both work at Sportsnet together. But again, like I remember being a kid watching that gold medal game in 2002 in Salt Lake when she captained Team Canada and they beat the U.S. In rather controversial fashion. They had the Americans and the officials to compete against that night, and they still found a way to pull through. And so having the chance to speak with her about that game years later was like, wow, this is unbelievable. Who would have thought I would have had the opportunity to do this? And I remember like before my first Hockey Night in Canada game I ever worked, usually what happens like at 7 o'clock, Ron McLean will do his opening, and then there's like quick kind of around the horn thing for the reporters that are rinkside hosting the 7 o'clock Eastern games. And so some nights, there would be 3 or 4 games on at 7 o'clock that we'd all be doing. And so this happened to be one of those nights. So I was here in Ottawa for a Canadian Sens game, and she was doing a game in Minnesota. I think Winnipeg was there. And so like I remember she put a tweet out earlier in the day, like, good luck to Kyle doing his first hockey night game tonight, and was like, make sure you don't take too much of my time at 7 o'clock kind of thing. So I always appreciated her sense of humor for that. And I was just getting to know her a little bit over the years. Like I just got such great respect for what she did as a player, and now what she's continuing to do behind the scenes, and even at the forefront of trying to progress the women's game and helping it move forward to a spot where there's one strong league that those female athletes that are so incredibly talented, that have dedicated their lives to the sport, that are properly compensated for it. And she's continuing to push for all of that. And I got all the time in the world for her.
Definitely. And then our last question, totally out of left field, non-hockey related. Do you have an extraterrestrial or a paranormal story that you can share with us?
Oh man, I wish I did. I mean, the only so my girlfriend, she grew up a couple hours outside of Calgary in Alberta, and her grandparents live in Medicine Hat, or her grandfather does. Her grandma passed away a couple years before I met her, but she would tell me stories of like being at her grandfather's house, and like grandma come around to play tricks on them, like whether it was flicker a light, or there was something down the hallway that there was a sound or whatever, different things like that. So that's like the closest thing that I'd come to a paranormal activity, is just being in that house and kind of hearing some of the stories that she's experienced over the years. But I don't have a first person one for you, unfortunately. But that's another great question. I wish I had a better answer for you.
That's okay.
It's okay. That's okay. It's out of left field. We kind of hit people out of nowhere with our last
and I
question.
love it.
So.
Yeah, bring them on.
It's a little fun. It plays into both of our passions and social media handles and things like that. So speaking of social media handles, tell everybody where they can follow you on social media.
Okay, Twitter, it's at SN Kyle Bukauskas, and at Sportsnet Kyle on Instagram. I don't know why they're different, but they are, and here we are.
The struggle is real trying to get those handles to be the same. It's
I know
is the case. So
because I know exactly. So I'm just
underscores and things
bed.
like that.
I made my bed.
Well, thank you so much, Kyle. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. Pleasure being on with you.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.